friends, and welcome to another episode of Chapters on Armstrong Television. Chapters is the show that allows you and me to get up close and personal with authors, editors, and publishers all across the country. I'm your host, Carter Seaton, and it's great to have you with us. Today, I am so excited. We have my friend and highly acclaimed author, Robert Gipe, with us. He won the 2015 Weatherford Award for Outstanding Appalachian Novel for his first book, Trampoline. His second novel, Weedeater, came out in 2018, and now we've got the final novel in the trilogy called Pop. All three were published by Ohio University Press. From 1997 to 2018, Robert directed the Southeast Kentucky Community and Technical College Appalachian program in Harlan, Kentucky. He's also the founding producer of Higher Ground, a community performance series. He resides in Harlan, but he grew up in Kingsport, Tennessee. Welcome to Chapters, Robert. We're so glad to have you. It's a real joy.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I think Robert and I met at the Appalachian Writers Workshop in Hindman, Kentucky, maybe on the dishwashing line, I'm not sure. But he was working on Weedeater then, and Trampoline had already come out. So I knew that there was a trilogy in the making. The characters in this trilogy are primarily members of one family, the Jewell family, who live in Kennard County, Kentucky. Dawn, Hubert, Nicolette, and assorted in-laws and cousins. And they are so well delineated and described, and their voices are so clear that by the time you've read these three novels, you feel like they're your next door neighbors and you're really sorry to see their story end. How did this idea all come about? Was it going to be a trilogy from the beginning?
Well, it was no, I don't guess so. I do like I like TV shows and I like books and things that kind of create communities or document communities that have all kinds of different people in them, and behind every door is a full story, and that these stories crisscross. And so I was interested in that kind of long form of storytelling where you might look at the same stories from different angles and across time. So it's not surprising that it ended up this way. I've told this story a couple times, but I was in this novel workshop with Darnell Arnault, and it was for either late starting or insecure writers, and which we all are, I guess. But part of the journey to getting your first novel done was to visualize all the novels you'd ever do, and so that was when I was still trying to get a first draft of Trampoline done. And so I said I was going to do three, and then just named them. And so I wanted one-word names that would be accessible to people in my community. They know what I was talking about. And so Trampoline got named Trampoline because I wanted to write a novel where a trampoline is used as a murder weapon, and it was used in a botched suicide is how I worked that in. But then with Weedeater and Pop, I had the names before I had the novels, and they actually kind of helped shape the novels. I'm like, well, what would a novel called Pop be about? So yeah, I had the names before the books on the second and third ones.
That's really fascinating. Can you give us just a little synopsis of each of the books and who
all three of them?
Yeah, and who the primary character is, because I think they do weave together so well that you got to know Dawn before you can know, Hubert or Willett or Nicolette. You got to know all those characters.
Okay. Well, first thing I would say that my publisher would have me say is that you don't really. Of course, it's good to buy all three.
Yes,
but if you need to start in the middle or end, they're fairly freestanding.
Oh,
But
they are. That's true. They're very
yeah,
standard.
but you just start wherever you want and go backwards and forwards or forwards and backwards, whatever you want to do, readers of America and all ships at sea. So Trampoline is set in 1999, 98, 99. Uh, it's a woman remembering when she was 15 and her mother was uh, coming on strong with a case of substance use disorder, and her grandmother is an environmental activist who's involved in trying to protect the highest peak in the state, which in my fictional Kentucky is on called Blue Bear Mountain. And so this young woman is uh, her father's dead. He died in a mining accident, so she's trying to figure out how to uh, come of age with both the people who are charged with her raising being distractive, one for not necessarily that productive activities, and the other one who's involved in all this environmental activism, which I guess some people would call unproductive as well. But it's she's caught between um, these two very busy people and is having to figure out how to grow up.
Miss
And
Dawn.
this is Dawn Jewel. Yeah, is her name, Misty Dawn Jewel. And so she's the narrator of the first book, and she kind of gets sucked into the environmental activism thing. She also steals a number of vehicles and wrecks them, and has some adventures related to that. She's involved in a failed car crash that kills her mother's boyfriend that causes her some issues. She get as part of her involvement in environmental activism, she persuades the governor of Kentucky to get involved, and she kind of gets an internet boyfriend in those early days of um, email and online courting. She meets a guy from Tennessee whose family is also involved in public or community radio, not even public radio, just they have a radio station and are covering this environmental struggle to protect Blue Bear Mountain. And so um, it ends with a couple of her family members in jail and her narrowly avoiding jail. And we get to see the arrival of OxyContin in the community as at the end of the book is kind of a specter that's been over the rest of the books. Um, and really all she does is kind of survive. So that's the happy ending there. The second book picks up in 2004, which kind of for me um, was one of the hardest years I've been here. A lot of funerals, a lot of overdoses, a lot of just chaos. And in the fictional world of Weedeater, whereas Dawn was the sole narrator of the first book, in the second book, she's joined with a man who's in love. Dawn has an aunt named June who's kind of one of the more stabilizing influences of her life by the second book. In the first book, she had flown the coop. She had left the family in Kentucky and moved to Tennessee. In the second book, she's trying to help stabilize her sister's life, Dawn's mother, and she's uh, unable to do that. And uh, but she comes back and teaches at the community college in Kennard County, and now Dawn is so she's in her 20s and she's married to her kind of soft Tennessee boyfriend, and they have a child who's 3 or 4, who's kind of an Appalachian prodigy, who's a big Roscoe Holcomb fan at age 3, um, and so Dawn is now struggling with all of that, and then she suffers a lot of loss in that book. A lot of her people closer to her die, and really it's and also she's involved in her Aunt June's public art projects, and they and this guy that is in love with her Aunt June named Weedeater, who mows the yard for her, is also a narrator, and he gets involved in their activism and art doings and kind of it's a kind of a commentary about people trying to fix things, and but it ends with really what we don't know it, but Dawn's on the brink of a hard time. And so then the third book is situated in late 2016, and it's kind of about the run up to the 2016 presidential election. And by this point, Dawn's daughter is one of the narrators, and Dawn is a narrator.
Nicolette.
Nicolette Jewell, or Nicolette Bilson. And you know, she's a part of this new generation of mountain youth that are generally optimistic and are generally trying to take what's best out of the tradition and create a new world. Basically, that, you know, so she gets involved with the kind of the nouveau Appalachian food scene that, you know, is kind of jumping off of what's happening with the Appalachian parts of the Southern Foodways Alliance and the Appalachian Food Summit and Ronnie Lundy's Vittles and all the kind of restaurants in Charleston and Nashville and Lexington and wherever that are kind of using Appalachian foodways as a base to kind of create new and exciting restaurants. But so she gets in the artisanal soda pop business and is using Appalachian herbs and stuff to and sorghum to make pop. And so she's kind of getting into that world. And then her uncle Hubert, who's been in all three books and is an outlaw kind of figure, is trying to go straight, and he gets into the adventure tourism business, and is running some cabins for the four-wheeler crowd. But and then there's a film being shot in the county, and he ingratiates himself with the director and some of the stars of the movie, and so then he's involved in that. And so, but Dawn, by this point, who has been our very vibrant and active protagonist, she's gotten a little overwhelmed, and she's become a hermit and interacts with the world mostly through commenting on social media. So there's a lot of exploration of social media lifestyle centered lifestyles. And then also there's the election is discussed, and its impact on the family. And so but yeah, and then and then of course there's always an environmental crisis in these books, and the Charleston water crisis is the environmental crisis. And in it, Nicolette's dad, Don's husband, the chemical company in the town I grew up was the company that supplied the coal float that spilled into the river in Charleston and caused that crisis. And so, so I was kind of interested in that congruence. So, of course, in this one, Willett, Don's husband, was driving one of the trucks that delivered the chemical, and so that kind of tied that into it. But that's the last.
Well, I love the way
years of my life.
I love the way you've captured an Appalachian lives. There's certainly not the usual stereotype, which is a good thing, but you also bring in societal problems like the OxyContin and like the water crisis and the environmental issues and so forth, even poor access to health care and all of those other things. Your life in Harlan and the way you've worked with issues like that, is that part of what you drew on to to inform this book. Like you said, you know, the water crisis was something obviously that you were concerned about. And I know you're an environmentalist and working with the kids with higher ground. Surely those are all issues that you deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, we're right here in the middle of it. Yeah, I think it's important. You know, I thought it was important to in these books for um, readers who might not live in that to understand that, you know, that people in the mountains aren't, they are acted upon, and the forces that move in our lives are largely out of our control. And that's a thing. Is how do you respond to forces out of your control when you recognize them as not particularly healthy for you?
Mhm.
And but that people do act, they don't just roll over, that there is a resistance here, and there is kind of agency. And so and I've been involved in that. It's not just theoretical,
Right.
it's the truth. And so a lot of times that, even in kind of left leaning literature about the area or other areas that are um, full of examples of outside exploitation, people are just presented as kind of pitiful.
Mhm.
And I think that kind of plays into the hands of the powerful, right? This idea that these forces are irresistible and that resistance is futile. And
Mhm.
it may or may not be, but that doesn't mean you don't resist.
Right.
That isn't something that's better for your health, really.
Yeah. And I think the way you've shown these people, there's also the discussion or the feeling in any sense, like with June, that some people leave to try and combat it because they don't know how to combat it where they are. But then she's drawn back, just like so many people in Appalachia. And like you said, resistance in place is probably more satisfying than leaving. And I also like the way that, you know, this story is, it's obviously the books are not at all didactic. You're not trying to preach to anybody, but you sure get the point within these stories. And in some cases, they're funny. They're really, you know, you've got a great sense of humor, and the characters are, they're fun to read about. Your pitch perfect command of the language is another thing that I always loved. I love hearing you read from them because it's your voice, and those are the people that you live around, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Till last year, I haven't lived around anybody for
Well, neither have I.
my
Yeah.
partner. That's about it.
So did you have to, in that case, did you have to read the dialect, the dialogue aloud so that you could remember that that's how people talk?
Well, you get on the phone and people type their Facebook comments in dialect.
Do they?
I think so. A lot of them do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing in itself. That,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Huh.
yeah. I mean, it. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, so much of where I think kind of speech patterns come from are, I mean, it's partly, you know, how people talk to you growing up and such, but it's also a lot about just your personal attitude, you know, that different people, I mean, it's interesting too. It's a lot like, how do you feel about things as they are? You know, if the status quo is working for you, it's more natural to adopt more standard English, I guess. But if things aren't working out for you, it's a little easier to hang on to uh, that resistant language, is one way to look at it. I've never thought of that before, but
Yeah.
to some extent that's true. Or if you're trying to become a part of things as they are, you know, to mold your way of speaking. But I think that really what I started to say is a lot of the um, speech patterns come from, is the person in a hurry, then they talk fast. Is the person angry all the time? Well, that affects how you a good I do that in when you're trying to teach. You get asked to talk about dialogue a lot when people like your dialogue, and one of the things is like, where are they coming from emotionally, and how does how you're feeling affect your speech?
That's interesting. Hadn't even thought about it that way. Uh,
Yeah.
when you decided to do these books, were they always going to be illustrated?
Well,
That's one of the wonderful things. Another wonderful thing about the book is your illustrations.
thank you. Well,
And
I'd always,
the audience needs to know they are your illustrations.
they are. It doesn't even say that in there. Somebody asked me that the other day, but yes, they are. No, I don't guess so. I had been working, I guess, for 3 or 4 years on Trampoline, and um, was not getting anywhere really, except that some people liked it, and so I had given up in many ways, but I was um, still, making stuff. So I stopped chasing the dream of publication, and started just putting out the chapters of the book in little stapled 24-page each chapter. And I was not just doing illustrations, but designing little covers and all kinds of stuff, and selling them at Hyman for $3 a piece or $4 autographed. And uh, and then that's how from there they started serializing it on the website Still, which is a great Appalachian literary website. And so and then that's where Ohio University Press found me. So
Wow.
you
That's
can
quite
draw your own lessons from that. Sometimes even when you give up, it's important to keep going, and to follow your own lights, and not let uh, what has come before dictate your way in the world.
that's a fascinating story. I didn't know that part of it.
Oh yeah,
So have you always been a drawer? Have you always tried to
I've
do?
always been a drawer. Yeah,
Yeah.
uh, I mean a drawer. I was, yes. Um, I would draw little people and have them say the things that would get me in trouble if I said them out loud in school. So
So, well, that works in the book, doesn't it?
it does, yeah. And so you see who's ended up being my characters. And so but yes, I've always loved Mad Magazine,
Mhm.
Cracked. Read a lot of Cracked as a youth. Doonesbury. I was a early bought every Doonesbury book they had at the B. Dalton bookseller in the Fort Henry Mall in Kingsport. Actually, I didn't buy them. I'd just stand there and read them while my mother was in the stores.
Silas House says that Dawn Jewel is a combination of Scout Finch, Huck Finn, and Holden Caulfield. Was she the first character that you envisioned in doing this trilogy?
Yeah, I
Is she your favorite?
she I invented Dawn and I didn't really invent her. She's kind of an amalgamation of a bunch of people I know, but uh, we had to send in to go to so we did these plays that we do out of oral histories. And we did the first one, and I adapted some of the oral histories for the stage, and for a couple of the scenes, and decided I wanted to go to a writing workshop, and so I was going to apply to Hyman, and you had to send a 30-page sample, or 20, whatever it was, 25 pages, and so I just made up Dawn for that,
Hmm.
and then just kept on hanging out with her until till last March, and she sent me on my way. And she's
Do you
out there
miss the
on her.
characters?
No, it's funny. It's like um,
I mean, you've
I
lived with
draw them,
them.
do them other stuff. They're still little people in my notebooks. I still have to go to meetings where I can't say everything I'm thinking. So
So what is next for you?
but I don't know. We just finished a community play and presented it to the community in late April and early May. And so I'm really kind of, I didn't start another book for the first time since 2006. I'm not working on a book. But I don't know,
Hmm.
taking a break.
Yeah, well, it'll come around. One of those characters will pop up and
Yeah.
remind you that you need to tell her story or his. So,
Yeah.
so
But
when you're doing all these other things, working at higher ground and all the things that you are involved in, how did you fit in actual writing with that?
well, looking back, I don't really know. You're just driven, I guess. You just want to, you want to get that done. And so you just make the time. I was telling somebody who's busy that's just starting, I said, um, Darnell Arnault, she said, her mantra is whatever you're working on, you should work on it every day, even if it's just 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 10 minutes. And I think for about 8 years I did that, just every day, even if it's just a sentence or just reading over what you did the day before and then, editing on it
Mhm.
so that you're always in it. And if you stay in it like that, and really, if that's what you want to get done, that's great advice, because I think that, you know, anybody, it you there's very, then I'll put it this way, I won't say anybody, but very, very few people can't find 5 minutes. And um and if you stay in it and it becomes that important to you, you find a way. The other advice on that front is, somebody told me one time, you shouldn't write unless you can't not write.
Mhm.
If it's not pushing itself to where you can get those. I mean, it's hard. It's not. I mean, it took 9 years to get Trampoline done.
Wow.
I started in, well, it took 8. I started in 2006 and turned in the manuscript in 2014, and it came out in 2015. So, you know,
Were you always gonna do the voices, the points of view from first person?
yes,
Because
yeah,
you want to be able to hear
never
their voices?
considered anything else.
Yeah, because you wanted people to be able to hear their voices.
Yeah, I mean, I like telling stories and they're in first person, and just when well, I shouldn't say that, because I tried doing third person, but when I hit on first person, it was just like it all made sense and I knew what I was doing.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Are you
Now
teaching?
that I think,
Are you
what's
teaching?
that?
Are you teaching this year at Heinemann, Kentucky,
I am
the writers workshop?
teaching a novel workshop.
Good for you.
It'll be interesting. I taught it I guess I taught it 2 years ago, and I'm not really a very good creative writing teacher. I do just steal from the people who taught me, but um, we'll do a bunch of stuff. It'll be all right. The application deadline's already passed, so I guess I guess I'm in it to win it somehow or another.
Sounds
But
like,
I'm afraid I used up all my good ideas on that last one. I've got to think up some stuff.
well, if
I
it's
got,
not the same people, you can just repeat it.
well, I'm afraid it's going to be some of the same people. I need to see the list so I can
Yeah,
decide how much I can recycle. But that's not really my thing. I
that's
like keeping it fresh.
sure. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you, and I've enjoyed it thoroughly as always. And
Wow.
that our readers, listeners will be happy to know that they can buy all three of your books and start wherever they want to. It's
That's right.
Weedeater, Trampoline, and Pop by Robert Gipe. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you again another day.
See you, buddy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Folks, thank you for joining us on Armstrong, and be sure to stay tuned for our next episode. And meanwhile, watch the channel for the news and views that impact you. Take care. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Connect with Chapters through email. Write to lp4@zoominternet.net. Chapters has a Facebook page at Armstrong Chapters. Like, subscribe, share, and comment. All Chapters episodes are available on YouTube. Visit the Armstrong Neighborhood channel on YouTube and look for a playlist of all the Chapters programs.